right, everybody, welcome back to the basics of Premiere. So you've got your tutorial video folder here. This is your project file. You can see it's got an extension of PROJ for Premiere Project. You're going to go ahead and double click that. You could also just launch Premiere and choose it as the last project that was opened or whatever you want to do. I don't know if you remember when I launched Premiere earlier, it showed me recent projects that I had been working on that I could relaunch. So we're going to go ahead and let Premiere open up and do its thing. So in this video, we are going to continue on our little timeline. I'm going to show you how to add audio to your timeline and also control the audio levels a little bit. I'm going to show you what happens if you move a video file and it disconnects from your project. That happens a lot. And I'm going to show you just a couple of other little tricks, okay, on your timeline of things you can do with your videos. So the very first thing we're going to do is go ahead and add some audio to my video content here. I've got about 30 seconds worth, and that's what I suggest that you also have, okay? So I'm going to take my audio file and I'm going to drag it down to the audio 1 line here. I'm going to go ahead and drag this down to give a little bit more visual space so you guys can see a little better. I'm going to give a little more visual space to my track 1 for video too. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and play this music. And one thing that's really magical about video content that, not a lot of people know until they start editing video and audio together is how powerful the sound is for the image that you're looking at. Whatever the sound is like, it's going to tell the viewer what to think about the image. So if I have this rock and the ocean and there's scary music playing in the background, I'm going to know that I need to be scared of what I'm looking at. Well, I have this sort of soothing piano music, right? So it's when I look at this rock, I'm like, oh, this is serene. I'm safe. I'm having a good time probably, right? So you can really guide the viewer on how you want them to feel about the video image by the audio that they're hearing. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at my audio level as it's playing. And when I look at my audio level, a good audio level to have for online streaming is between -12 and -6. -6 being the absolute highest. So you want -6 when somebody laughs loudly or something like that. But really sitting around that -12 is going to be a good spot for your video to be playing at. So how do you control this? Well, if I click on the audio asset, you're going to see in the Effect Controls panel, you have a level option. There are other options, but we're not going to get into those today. You have a level decibel option, and right now it's at 0. So this audio file, when it was brought in, it sits just under -12, which is actually perfect. But I'm going to go ahead and take this level, and I'm going to drag it up. Let's see, that's way too much. Let me just actually go ahead and enter 0 again. And I'm going to just drag it up like 6 decibels. And now if I play it back, you can see that my audio level's sitting at around -6, peaking, and that's too high. That's too loud. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop it, and then I'm going to go ahead and just drag this way down, like -25 from where it was. And I see it's actually dropping keyframes on here, which I'll get into in just a moment. But when I do that, you can see it's playing at a level that's so low, you can't even really hear it, okay? So audio levels are really important for the video content that you produce. If your audio levels are bad or they sound bad or it's a low quality, the person watching your video, basically your video is unwatchable if your audio's, you can't listen to it. So you can see here that I've I've actually dropped these keyframes, and what's happening is that my audio goes from very, very loud, and then it goes down and it drops down to this -25, and I actually didn't mean to do that. So I want to actually delete these. So you can see I've highlighted this one in blue. I'm just going to delete it. And then I've highlighted this other one in blue, and I'm just going to delete it. And what it's going to do is it just brings me back to 0. So you want to kind of watch. The reason that it's dropping those is because I have a toggle animation capability over here, and you can animate just about all of these controls, and that's something that I forgot about. So we are actually going to do something with these keyframes here in just a moment. So the first thing that I want to do, though, is we want to edit this audio to end at the end of the video. So the next thing that I want you to do is I want you to actually navigate through your timeline by using some arrow keys. So if you use your down arrow, you're going to see that you can navigate through the timeline by the beginning of each clip. So if you navigate to the very end, it's going to sit right on that last frame of your video. And you're going to go ahead and select the razor tool, and you're just going to cut that audio right at the end there. I'm going to grab my selection tool, and I'm going to select the back of the audio file that I do not want, and I'm going to go ahead and delete. Now, there are a lot of things I'm skipping over right now, like the nuance of placing the audio in the best way and doing a lot more, editing. But right now I'm just showing you the very basics. Bringing video content in, resizing it, giving it some edits, and adding some audio at a good audio level, okay? So my level is just sitting under -12. I do want to bring it up a little bit. And then I do want to have my audio fade in and out, but we're going to do that with some effects. So what I want to do is on my level, my audio level, I actually want to toggle that time clock off because I don't want it dropping those animation keyframes for the amplitude level like I was doing in the beginning. So if we toggle that off, it will stop doing that. And I'm just going to bring this up like maybe like 4 decibels or 3.8, and I'm going to see where that level's sitting, and it's sitting right at that -12. So that's perfect. This audio file actually has 2 channels to it, and they are bouncing at a little bit slightly different rate, but that's okay because for people that are listening to stereo quality, that's going to give them a little bit added dynamic range and texture to what they're listening to. You can switch this to just be 1 channel, but I'm just going to leave it be. You can do that, but we'll leave it be. If you have the option for 2 channels and you can leave it at that, do that. Sounds, options for your viewers will just switch it to a mono file if they don't have 2 channel capabilities and they're, whatever they're listening on. So anyways, okay, so we've got our very basics. We've got our video clips edited onto the timeline. They're resized and they're looking good. One thing that I want to do, though, is I want to, with these types of videos, sometimes you'll see a blurred out, blown up version behind it. And I do want to show you how to do that really quick. And this will kind of introduce you into video layers a little bit. So what we're going to do is I'm going to actually have you highlight the food video, and I'm going to have you hit Command or Control C for copy, and then bring your scrubbing tool down the timeline a little bit and hit Command or Control V for paste. I want you to take this little video clip and bring it up above your original clip. Now, these layers kind of work like layers of paper. So video 1 is going to be on top. Video 2 is underneath, even though they're going up. I know it kind of feels backwards, but that's how the audio layers work too. Anyways, so this is going to be in front of this video clip. So we're going to come back over here And I'm actually going to back this out a little bit so I can see it a little bit better. I'm going to back it out to 50% or maybe 25%. I want to get a little bit of a sense of how big the background video is going to be. So if I select the video on top, which is actually behind, and I go ahead and take the scale. Oh, you know what? I made a big mistake. I have this backwards. I'm so sorry. I apologize. The bottom one is going to be behind. Of course, Carmen. What's wrong with you? Okay. I take it. Everything I just said about the layers, I really apologize. I take it back. Once in a while, you know, I teach a lot of these different applications, and sometimes I just say the wrong thing. It happens. Okay, so the background one, I'm going to blow up. All right, and so now you can see it's the same exact video clip, but I've got that blown out background. And then I think what I might do is if I select the bottom one, which is on the bottom layer, I can move the position, and I think I'm going to just move it down a little bit so that the hand in the background is kind of replicating the movement of the hand on the video. So now you're going to see that those are matching. Okay, so now let's just play with a few little effects. So on this bottom layer with it selected, we're going to toggle the opacity. So you're going to see opacity here. We're going to toggle down the caret. You can see there's a time clock option for opacity, but we're not going to do any animating. We're just going to bring the opacity down to maybe like 65%. So we're filling the video space with the video that's already there. We're bringing the opacity down so that the focal point is here in the center, but we still have visual information on the sides. Now, this is not necessary for this video's shape. You don't have to do this, but you can do it if you want. It just depends on the type of content you're making and who your audience is. You're going to see this type of technique on news a lot in different types of media where they're wanting to go ahead and fill up that screen. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go back to fit so I can see it a little better now that I've got it blown up. Now this already has a bit of a blur because I've blown up the video so much. So you can see how it starts degrading the resolution once it gets blown up quite a bit. Now we're going to come over here to the effects panel. So you're going to have two panels up here by default. You're going to have essential graphics and you're going to have effects. And we're just going to search for our options for blur. And I'm going to choose the Gaussian blur. So if this clip is selected, I think you can double click and apply the filter, but we can also just click down and drag and drop it onto the clip, and you're gonna see Gaussian blur appear here underneath all your other effect controls. So any of these effects that you drop on your video clips are gonna start appearing here. Now you can see there's a time clock where you can control the animation of the blurriness, but we're not going to get into that. I'm going to go ahead and take the blurriness and I'm going to bring it up to, I don't know, like 35. This is going to blur it a little bit better so that it's not seeming blurry from becoming pixelated, that I'm actually adding a little bit of extra blur so that it seems intentional and it doesn't, the video content doesn't look like it's of a low quality. Yeah, so that's just a little bit of manipulation there. I'm going to show you one other thing, and then I'm going to show you how to export a video. And then I'll have one other section that will show a few advanced techniques. So the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to the Essential Graphics tab, and you can do a lot of your own stuff in here, but I want to show you the Essential Graphics panel because this can be really useful for things that you just need to do really quick and you don't feel like reinventing the wheel. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and pick Modern Title. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to drag it down to the beginning of my timeline on the V2. So this is going to be layered on top of, okay? The opposite of what I said earlier. So sorry about that again. So if we click on this, you're going to see in the effect controls, there's a lot of stuff showing up here. There's a lot of controls you can have over this modern title. But we are just going to be really simple about it, and we're going to just change the text. So I'm going to come up here. I have a text tool in my toolbox. I'm going to go ahead and click that. I'm going to click on modern title, and I'm going to change this to video. We'll do all caps because it looks really nice in all caps. Video tutorial. Okay? And that is how you can very quickly throw an animated title on your video. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and export this. And then, like I said, we'll come back in and do a few other advanced things just real quickly. All right, so to export this, what we're gonna do, I'll actually save this first. It's really good practice to always save your project as you think of it, because things happen, applications crash, and you don't want to be stuck losing, an hour and a half worth of editing. So whenever you think about it, hit that Command S. There are settings in your preferences where you can auto-save your project more often if you want. Anyways, let's go ahead and go over to the Export tab. There's a lot of options here. You're going to see YouTube, Vimeo, Twitter, Facebook, Behance, Creative Cloud, and FTP. Don't worry about all those right now. We are just going to stick to media file, okay? Because whatever we export out of media file can still be used on these platforms. And if it's not quite right for the platform will usually convert the video anyways. So we are going to, I'm going to name this final. So what we're doing right now is we're naming a video asset, okay? So we had our video assets and audio, we brought them into Adobe Premiere to edit them, and we created a project file. And now we are outputting that final project. So we're outputting a video file. And I know for some of you that might sound like, oh yeah, of course I know that. But for those of you that have never edited video before, it can be really confusing, okay? So I'm gonna call it Final Tutorial. I am going to make sure that my video is being saved where I want it to be saved, which is in my vid tutorial file, and that's perfectly fine, okay? We are going to choose a different preset. So right now it says match source, which can be a very, very high resolution depending on what you're doing. But I always like to choose just high quality 1080 HD. That is the size that we chose, HDV 1080. So that's what I'm going to choose for my output. There's a lot of different formats that you can choose here. The standard for online streaming is H.264. We're going to stick with that. You're going to see a lot of options down here for video and audio and da-da-da-da-da. We're going to just leave those all at default, okay? So this is all we're doing. We're media file. We're naming our file. We're making sure we know where we saved our file. We are choosing high quality 1080 HD and H.264. Now, down here, it is going to further confuse you because you have an option to send this to Media Encoder. Media Encoder is a master encoder that will export video content from many different applications in the Adobe suite. But we are not going to do that today, okay? We're just going to keep it simple. So don't worry about send a media encoder, just hit export. And you're going to see that it begins a process of encoding, and then it does a process where it's going to go ahead and export the video, okay? So we're just gonna give it a second. Now, this clip that you're exporting is your final product or project or whatever you want to call it, your final asset. We can call it your final asset. Okay, so now I am going to make this a little smaller. I'm going to go to my folder and I'm going to see Final Tutorial MP4. And what we're going to see is exactly what we just edited. This is your final project. It's got the audio playing. And so for those of you that have never done anything like this before, congratulations, you just edited your first video in Adobe Premiere, okay? See, we've got the nice double video that we put in with our Gaussian blur, and everything looks as it should. All right? So if you want to go ahead and be at a stopping point right now, what you're going to do is you're going to make sure you save everything in a Premiere. If you're just moving on to the next video, you don't need to close Premiere down. I'm not going to this time because I'm just going to move on to the next video. But you certainly can if you are at a stopping point and you want to finish our few advanced techniques later on. Okay? All right. Well, I'll see you all in the next video.